The dark side of Canada. They don't want you to know about. Do you think you know everything about Canada? This country is famous for its polite smiles, sweet maple syrup, and free healthcare system that many around the world envy. But what if I told you that behind this perfect image, there's a darker side that few talk about? A Canada that's not just a symbol of peace, kindness, and prosperity, but also a place dealing with deep social issues that even locals sometimes prefer to avoid confronting. Did you know that more than 235,000 people in Canada face homelessness each year? Yes, in a country where everything seems perfect, hundreds of thousands are living without a roof over their heads. And that free healthcare system everyone praises, it's not as free as you might think. Some immigrants wait months before they even have the chance to see a family doctor, and the cracks in the system are becoming increasingly visible, though not everyone notices. There's more. From subtle racism, excessively high taxes, to Canada lagging behind in technology, there are surprising truths that many don't want you to know. But the most shocking thing is this: Canada's perfect reputation is just the surface. Serious social issues still exist, leaving many shocked when they first face the reality. Whether you're planning to move to Canada or just curious about the truth, this video will reveal the secrets that no one else dares to share. We'll dive deep into everything, from the healthcare system to the struggles of finding a job. Things that may completely change how you view Canada forever. Get ready, because you're about to discover a Canada that not everyone dares to reveal. Number 1. The housing crisis. Let's start by looking at one of the biggest problems Canada is currently facing: the housing crisis. If you imagine Canadian streets lined with beautiful, high-quality, affordable homes, the reality may shock you. In truth, housing prices in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver have become outrageously expensive, making even basic apartments a kind of luxury. Believe it or not, the cost of a tiny apartment in downtown Toronto can be equivalent to a mortgaged house in many other countries. But the problem isn't just about price, it's also about quality. You won't be surprised to find homes with thin walls, poor insulation, and inefficient designs, especially in older buildings. This becomes a huge issue in the winter, when you end up spending a fortune just to keep your poorly insulated house warm. And if you're renting, don't expect repairs to happen quickly. Many landlords don't even live in Canada, making maintenance a real challenge. Why is this happening? A large part of it is due to the high number of immigrants, which puts pressure on an already stretched housing supply. Builders are cutting corners to speed up construction, which lowers the quality of housing. Some also argue that foreign investors are driving up home prices, although this is still a point of debate. In short, Canada's housing crisis isn't just about cost. The question is whether you're really getting value for the money you spend. So, if you're considering moving to Canada, be ready to lower your expectations about that dream home. Number 2. Difficulty finding jobs for newcomers. For newcomers, getting a job in Canada can be a challenging journey, despite the impressive qualifications and extensive experience they may bring. One of the biggest obstacles that frustrates many new arrivals is the requirement for Canadian work experience, a haunting phrase that many are all too familiar with after being rejected multiple times. You might wonder, what does that really mean? It's the expectation that employers have for candidates to already be familiar with the Canadian work environment and business culture, something you can only get by having worked in Canada before. Canadian employers tend to be cautious. They don't just look for experience, but for candidates who understand the local corporate culture, business norms, and the organizations they're familiar with. While this makes sense from a business perspective, it becomes a huge barrier for talented newcomers, even those with years of experience and expertise from other countries. Not only that, but some professions in Canada, like engineering, medicine, or law, require recertification. This means that even if you've built a career for decades abroad, you can't start working immediately upon arrival in Canada without going through a lengthy recertification process, which could take months or even years. This is a massive challenge, especially for those without the time or financial resources to continue studying and waiting. Networking is another crucial factor that newcomers often lack. In Canada, who you know can be just as important as what you know. For immigrants, the lack of local connections makes job hunting much harder. Along with that, adjusting your resume to meet Canadian standards can be tricky. Here, people prefer concise resumes that focus on skills rather than detailed descriptions of past roles, which not everyone is used to. But don't lose hope. Building local connections, gaining volunteer experience, and learning the ins and outs of the Canadian job market can help you gradually overcome these hurdles. Though it's difficult, with patience and effort, you can definitely find a suitable job and grow your career in Canada. Number 3. The healthcare system. Canada's healthcare system is often praised as one of the country's greatest achievements, providing free medical services for everyone. Sounds great, right? However, there's another side to this system that few talk about. Long wait times, a shortage of doctors, and limited access to medical specialists. When you first arrive in Canada, one of the initial shocks might be how difficult it is to find a family doctor. In some provinces, getting on a waiting list can take months, and if you live in large cities like Toronto or Montreal, the wait can be even longer. But wait, it doesn't stop there. After you finally get a family doctor, being referred to a specialist or getting complex tests like MRIs can be a whole other battle. The demand for healthcare far exceeds the supply, leading to long delays in diagnosis and treatment. The main reason for this is that Canada doesn't train enough doctors to meet the needs of its growing population. This is made worse by the fact that many doctors and medical professionals are lured to other countries, especially the United States, where they can earn higher salaries and enjoy better working conditions. As a result, Canada's healthcare system is often understaffed, forcing people to endure long wait times just to access basic services. And what about medical equipment? The shortages extend beyond personnel to essential medical devices as well. Depending on where you live, you may have to wait weeks or even months to get the necessary tests done, especially more specialized ones. For people with non-life-threatening conditions, these delays can feel never-ending and cause significant disruptions in their daily lives. Although Canada's healthcare system remains a big advantage, especially when compared to the high costs of healthcare in many other countries, it's important to manage your expectations. Free healthcare doesn't mean you'll get immediate care. Be prepared for delays and learn how to navigate the system with patience. Number 4. The technology gap. If you're coming from countries with advanced technology like the United States, parts of Europe, or some regions in Asia, you might be surprised by the state of technology in Canada. Despite being a developed nation, Canada is still lagging in many aspects of technology, making you feel like you've stepped back in time by a decade. Let's start with the internet. Fast and affordable internet might be a luxury for many Canadians. In fact, Canada ranks among the countries with some of the most expensive internet and mobile plans in the world. While other nations have moved forward with unlimited data plans and super-fast speeds, Canadians are still paying hefty sums for limited services with few options, due to the dominance of a handful of large telecom companies. This means you'll be paying more, but getting less. The technology gap is also evident in the healthcare system. In many advanced countries like Sweden or Germany, booking appointments and accessing medical records online is easy. In Canada, however, many people still have to call their doctor's office, leave a message, and wait for a response. E-health is only just starting to take root in Canada, and the transition has been slow. Additionally, Canada's banking system hasn't been immune to the slow adoption of financial technologies. The banking industry in Canada is dominated by 5 large corporations, and the system is notoriously conservative and slow to innovate. If you're used to advanced financial apps that allow instant money transfers or smart transaction management, Canada may leave you disappointed. The lack of competition and strict regulations have made it difficult for cutting-edge financial technologies to take hold here. In short, while Canada has many admirable achievements in various fields, when it comes to technology, the country is still playing catch-up with other nations. This can be surprising for those expecting a more modern and technologically advanced Canada. Number 5. Subtle racism. Canada is famous for its multicultural policies and is often praised as a model for diversity and tolerance. With over 25% of the population being immigrants, you might think racism is a thing of the past here. But the truth is, racism still exists in Canada, though it's often more subtle and hidden. It's sometimes referred to as silent racism. It's not about overt acts of discrimination, but more about the unseen barriers that show up in everyday experiences, policies, and even in the workplace. Many immigrants and minority groups face systemic barriers when applying for jobs, even when they have qualifications and experience that are equal to or better than other applicants. People of color are often quietly overlooked, while employers tend to hire those who fit with the company culture, a subtle way to exclude people from different cultural backgrounds. This gap is also reflected in wage disparities between racial groups. Black Canadians, Indigenous people, and other minority groups often earn less than their white colleagues for doing the same work. A more public example of this silent racism can be seen in Quebec's Bill 21, which bans public servants from wearing religious symbols like headscarves or turbans. While supporters argue that it's to maintain secularism, many critics say it's a form of discrimination against religious minorities, particularly Muslims. Furthermore, Canada's relationship with its Indigenous communities reveals another reality. The legacy of residential schools, where Indigenous children were forcibly removed from their families to be assimilated, has left deep scars that are still present today. While the government has issued apologies, Indigenous communities still face challenges in accessing healthcare, education, and clean water. In short, racism in Canada may not be loud or obvious, but it's still there, quietly affecting many lives. Understanding this darker side helps provide a more complete picture of Canada, beyond its reputation for diversity and tolerance. Number 6. The reality of taxes. One of the things that surprises many newcomers to Canada is the high level of taxes in the country. You may have heard that taxes are higher in Canada compared to other countries, but what not everyone understands is just how much they can affect your daily life. Yes, these taxes help fund Canada's healthcare system, education, and social services, all things that are seen as great advantages of living here. But when you're paying those taxes out of your own pocket, the story can look very different. Let's start with income tax. When you hear about a job offering $100,000 a year in Canada, be cautious. That's the pre-tax figure. Depending on which province you live in, your tax rate could range from 15% to over 50% of your income, especially if you're in a higher income bracket. For example, in Ontario, if you make over $220,000 a year, about half of that will go to the government. This means the actual amount of money you take home could be much lower than you originally thought. Then there's sales tax. In Canada, the price you see on the shelf doesn't include tax, so when you get to the checkout, you'll have to add another 5% to 15% to the final price, depending on where you live. This can be quite a shock when buying expensive items like electronics, cars, or furniture. For instance, in provinces like Quebec or British Columbia, you'll pay nearly 15% more on the listed price. And don't forget property tax. If you own a home, this tax can add a significant financial burden, making your monthly expenses much higher. Even basic services like garbage collection and water can be taxed or included in municipal fees. While Canadian taxes fund many benefits, they can also be much higher than newcomers expect. Understanding these hidden costs early on will help you better prepare for life in Canada. Number 7. The homelessness problem. Canada is often seen as a wealthy and developed nation with strong social programs, but something many people don't know is that homelessness is a serious and growing issue here. This becomes especially apparent in large cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. In a country that prides itself on inclusion and social welfare, it's surprising to see how widespread homelessness has become. Every year, more than 235,000 Canadians experience homelessness, whether it's just for a few nights, weeks, or longer. On the streets, in shelters, or couch surfing with friends, many people are struggling to find stability. In places like Vancouver, where housing prices are sky high, homelessness is increasingly visible. Walking through certain neighborhoods, you'll see streets filled with tents, where many people are living in temporary shelters. The main reason? Skyrocketing housing costs. With rent and home prices soaring, affordable housing is becoming increasingly out of reach for many, particularly those with low incomes or facing challenges like mental health issues or addiction. While Canada does have support programs like government-funded shelters and social services, these programs are often overburdened and underfunded, leaving many people without the help they need. The opioid crisis has also worsened the problem. In many cities, addiction is closely linked to homelessness, as people lose their homes and jobs due to drug dependence. Programs like safe injection sites and harm reduction efforts are trying to tackle the issue, but homelessness remains a major challenge. While Canada is known for its progressive social policies, homelessness is a problem that doesn't get much discussion. It's easy to overlook or get used to seeing homeless people on the streets, but the reality is that this issue is worsening, and finding long-term solutions is still a significant challenge. Before we wrap up, we want to hear from you. What surprised you the most about Canada? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video eye-opening, check out our previous video for more insightful perspectives. We've put a lot of effort into creating this content, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Just one click makes a big difference for us. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.